SABCA.
There is 117.
That's right. So there is a footnote, and we have to read that footnote today.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kiran was asking about the definition of Vedism and Vedantism. So I'll just make a brief reference to that again, once again, so that it's clear in the mind, and then we'll proceed with the, because the footnote also is saying that there is the right interpretation. Okay, so we'll have to look at that. The Gita talks about Vedism and Vedantism and criticizes those who use the Vedas only for their language, not the inner meaning. Okay, so that is Vedism, and Vedanta is the deeper knowledge that is contained in the Vedas. Okay, so this is what is the difference between Vedism and Vedantism. Okay? Vedanta is the philosophy of the Upanishads, the Gita, as well as the Brahma Sutras. It's called the Prasthanatrayam. Okay? So, now, what is the Vedism is those who use the Vedas and their mantras only for personal gains in the physical world. But if it is done in the right way and you do it with the right sacrifice, then it can give you results. But it will give you results which are ego-based in the physical world. I want children, I want wealth, I want a good family, all this, I want success in business. And there are all sorts of mantras are there in the Gita. In the Vedas. So use of Vedas for personal gain and going to heaven and being happy is one thing, that is Vedism. That is what the Gita criticizes. It goes to the extent of flowery language. You are concentrating only on the flowery language and using it for success in the world. That is not the purpose of the Vedas. So there is an interpretation of some people who say that the Gita is criticizing the Vedas. Actually, it is not. It is criticizing those who use the Vedas in the wrong way. Okay? And there is a right way, that is to go about with the Vedantic. The Vedantic philosophy derived from the Vedas, by the way, are not spiritual knowledge. They are spiritual experiences recorded by the rishis. And the rishis, oh my God, one day I made a list of all the rishis in the Rig Veda. Oh, I could not even finish the list. I think there are 30 or 40 rishis. Each in the Vedas, the Rig Veda especially, they are divided like this. First of all, there are mandalas. Okay? There are mandalas, and then there are the different sections. And each section has got shlokas. So there are 3 levels. Just like in Savitri, you have book 1, book 2, book 3, book 12, and then you have the chapters. Yeah. And then you have the cantos, and then you have the shlokas. Okay. So exactly in the same way, it is also like that in the Gita. And each canto or the mandala is the chapter. But what is there? I've forgotten. They use the word anuvak or something like that. I've forgotten the word. And they are, at the heading of each one, there are 3 headings. One heading says it is addressed to certain gods. Okay? It may be Varuna, it can be Shashanka, it may be Mitra, it can be Bhaga, it can to which god. Second is the name of the rishi who has composed that particular chapter. And finally, there is the shlokas. And the name of the poet. The name of the poet and the rhythm in which it is written. Okay? Each rhythm, you know that there are many rhythms. Huh? In Sanskrit, there are even more than in English. Okay? So that's for the. So I had to make a list, and that's also many. And all these were compiled by Vyasa. Okay? The famous Vyasa, it is suspected that it was Vyasa because he uses another name also for it. Badarayana, I think they use the word Badarayana. But it is suspected it is Vyasa. So, is that clear now, Kiran?
Yes, Rangada.
Yeah. So, the use of the Vedas is for knowledge. Okay. So, now we'll read that.
Rangada,
Yeah, tell me.
Rangada, one question. I thought Vedas were anonymous.
No. They're not anonymous. Oh, I understand what you mean.
Hmm.
I have understood. They are not written by any particular human being. That is what you mean by anonymous. But they were recorded. They were recorded. Why? Because it was not the human being who is writing them, but they were heard. They are shrutis. They are coming from the intuitive plane and they are just recorded. That is what it meant by anonymous. Okay?
So it is recorded by a particular rishi, in you mean?
That's right. So it is in that sense. And that's why they say the Vedas are not written by human beings. They are just heard and noted down. Like Savitri also, Sharda just to hear and note down, hear and note down. In fact, all his books, Synthesis, the Gita, Savitri, all the books, he wrote from a silent mind. His mind was absolutely silent. So it's coming from on top and he just recorded. Coming from on top and recording. The source is up there, not here. That is what he meant by the Vedas being anonymous in that sense, not written by human beings. Okay. So the word anonymous, I got the hint, what you mean. That's right. Okay, but they were recorded by rishis. Okay.
Also, Rangada, Vedantist, Adi Shankaracharya was Vedantist, no?
The Vedanta is a very big covering umbrella under which there are many philosophies. Vedanta means that which comes at the end of Vedanta. And under Vedanta, there is Advaita, there is only one, not two. Ekameva Dvitiyam. Ekameva Advitiyam. That is Satchidananda. That is the Advaita philosophy of Shankara. Then there is also Vedantic. Also it is the Ramanuja. It is called Vishishta Advaita, special Advaita. Because he says that while it is true that the human soul and the divine soul is one, essentially, and I'll explain essentially also what I mean, but they can also be different. Okay? Just like water vapor, and ice are essentially the same substance, essentially the same, call it what you want, but they are taking three different forms. So, exactly in the same way, the human soul and the divine soul essentially are one. Again, I can give another example. Take gold. Okay? Take on the table, you put earrings, okay, anklets, okay, nose rings, necklace, and bracelets. You keep all on the table. They are all different forms, but essentially they are all same. Why? Because they are gold. So that is what we meant by essential. Now this word Srimanda uses again and again. So remember this explanation of essential. The human soul and the divine soul are essentially the same, but they can also be different. Just like gold rings and earrings and nose rings. Okay? So that is what is meant by. So Ramanuja says that essentially they are same, yet they can be different. You can have a relation. When there is only one, the question of relationship does not arise. But when there are two or more, relationships can come up. And what is special about relationships? You can have friendship, you can have love, you can have intimacy, and that with the divine. So when you experience love for the divine, there is someone who is loving and there is someone who is loved. So that is the Dvaita philosophy. But there is a third philosophy which is only Dvaita. Ramanuja is Vishishta Advaita, special Advaita, that both are possible. And Madhvacharya says that essentially they may be same, but they are different. You can have a relation with the divine, but you can't become the divine. Which Srimanda says all of them are true because they are experiences which you can have of the divine, But the thing is that they're all on different planes. When human being has an experience of the divine, it is never the full thing. So you have one aspect. The divine is too infinite, and the human being is too finite. So you can have one aspect of the divine. And even that one aspect, when you experience, it is so satisfying that you think that that's the only thing that exists. But that is not correct. Okay, so that is what is Vedanta. Vedanta is the Advaita philosophy, the Dvaita philosophy, and also as the Vishishta Advaita philosophy, also Sridhar philosophy. It is also, and what is the essence of Vedanta? There is only one ultimate reality. That's it. Okay, so let's get back to our that footnote. We'll read the footnote, and then, because that's a discussion that is going on in the essay on the Gita. So somebody has to read that footnote. So today I see that Yasmin is not there yet. That is surprising. Normally she is there. Anyway, so Pallavi, maybe you can read the footnote?
If yes, Rangada.
Yeah, go ahead. Read the footnote.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
That this is the right interpretation results also from the opening of the 8th chapter, where the universal principles are enumerated. Akshara, Swabhava, Karma, Kshara, Bhava, Purusha, Adiyajna. Akshara is the immutable Brahma, spirit or self, Atman. Swabhava is the principle of the self, Adhyatma operative as the original nature of being, own way of becoming, and this proceeds out of the self, the Akshara. Karma proceeds from that and is the creative movement, Visarga, which brings all natural beings and all changing subjective and objective shapes of being into existence. The result of karma, therefore, is all this mutable becoming, the changes of nature developed out of the original self-nature, Kshara Bhava, out of Swabhava. Purusha is the soul, the divine element in the becoming. Adidvaitya, by whose presence the workings of karma become a sacrifice, yajna, to the divine within, Adi Yajna, is the secret divine who receives the sacrifice.
This is the footnote to
proceeds all the works. From this Brahman with qualities proceed all the works.
Okay. So, but I'm trying to find that. My eyesight is not good enough. Where is the
15th line? 15th line from the top.
Yeah. I've got it. Okay. So, from the Purusha in Prakriti, from this Brahman with qualities, proceed all the works of the universal energy, karma, in man and in existence. So, this is what he's explaining. That this is the right interpretation results also from the opening of the 8th chapter of the Gita, where the universal principles are enumerated. So, the universal principles are all the Akshara. You remember the 3 Purushas. There is the Kshara Purusha at level 1. There is the Akshara Purusha in level 2, which is the spiritual planes of consciousness. And there is the Uttama Purusha, which is the 3rd level. Okay, so all these are possible. Then Swabhava, Karma, Kshara Bhava, all these are explained in the Gita very clearly. So karma is all work, whereas the Vedism is interpreting karma to be only sacrifice, the yajna, in the physical sense. Okay, whereas the Gita's yajna is and karma are quite different. They are not at all what is being interpreted by the wrong interpretation of the Vedas. So now if we read that, but he may be known in an inferior action, if you read, it will become clear. Okay, so let's read that. But he may be known in an inferior action through the devas. there is the Ishvara at the highest level, who is the Purushottama. Okay, so there are three levels. Let's discuss that. Akshara, Kshara, and the Purushottama. So let's read the para, but he may be known in an inferior action. So then he will explain what is the. If you read that, it will become clear. Let's read. So somebody has to read. Sunki can read or Shilpa can read. Shilpa, you have the text?
Yes, I have a text.
Can you read?
Yes, I can read.
Okay, read. He may be known.
The whole sense, no?
Yeah, but he may be known.
Oh, but he may be known. Okay. Yes, I am reading. Yes. But he may be known in an inferior action through uh, through the devas, the gods, the power of the divine soul in nature, and in the eternal interaction of these powers and the soul of man, mutually giving and receiving, mutually helping, increasing, raising each other's workings and satisfaction, a commerce in which man rises towards a growing fitness for the Supreme God. He recognizes that his life is a part of his divine action in nature and not a thing separate and to be held and pursued for its own sake. He regards his enjoyments and satisfaction of his desires as a fruit of sacrifices and the gift of the gods in the divine universal workings, and he ceases to pursue them in the false and evil spirit of sinful, egoistic selfishness, as if they were a good to be seized from life by his own unaided strength, without return and without thankfulness. As this spirit increases in him, he subordinates his desires, becomes satisfied with sacrifices as the law of life, and works and is content with whatever remains over from the sacrifice, giving up all the rest freely as an offering in the great and beneficent interchange between his life and the world life. Whoever goes contrary to this law of action and pursues works and enjoyment for his own isolated personal self interest lives in vain. He misses the true meaning and aim and utility of living and the upward growth of the soul. He is not on the path which leads to but the highest only comes when the sacrifices is no longer to the gods, but to the one all providing divine established in the sacrifice, of whom the gods are inferior forms and powers. And when he puts away the lower self that desires and enjoys and gives up his personal sense of being the workers to the true executrix of all works, Prakriti, and his personal sense of being the enjoyer to the divine Purusha, the higher and universal self, who is the real enjoyer of the works of Prakriti. In that self, and not in any personal enjoyment, he finds now his soul satisfaction, complete content, pure delight. He has nothing to gain by action or inaction, depends neither on gods nor man for anything, seeks no profit from any, for the self delight is all sufficient to him, but does works for the sake of the divine only, as a pure sacrifice without attachment or desire. Thus he gains quality and becomes free from the modes of nature, nis- Nistraygunya, his soul takes its poise not in the security of Prakriti, but in the peace of the immutable Brahman, even while his actions continue in the movement of Prakriti. Thus is sacrifice his way of attaining to the highest.
That's right. The big para, okay, more than a page, but I'm reading that last sentence again, okay. Thus he gains equality, and becomes free from the modes of nature, Nistrai Gunya. He becomes Trigunatita. He goes beyond the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. His soul takes its poise not in the insecurity of Prakriti, but in the peace of the immutable Brahman, even while his actions continue in the movement of Prakriti. Thus is sacrifice his way of attaining to the highest. Okay, so this is the, it's very clear, but once we get the ideas, it will be clear. I come back to the last sentence of the previous paragraph because it starts from there. Okay, and it's quite a big sentence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 or 8 lines. So I am reading from there, but you will all get the text and then we'll read. So, previous paragraph, yes, last sentence, beginning from for all the workings of Prakriti. Okay? If all of you have got that, I will read it. So,
Yes, Rangada.
yeah, okay. Once you have got that, I remind you that there are 3 levels. Okay? These levels are very important. Level 1 is what Gita calls the Kshara Purusha. The soul is in ignorance because it has identified itself with body, mind, life. It sees multiplicity and in ignorance does not see the oneness. Okay, this is level 1. Our normal condition, we don't know even see our soul. So this is level 1. Kshara Purusha. Even the psychic being is developing. It is essentially divine, but it is developing. Then the Akshara Purusha. Akshara, no movement at all. Okay? No movement, absolutely static. That's level 2. That's the Brahmic consciousness or the self or the Atman, or you can call it witness, Sakshi. You are not acting, you are just watching. Okay? So, this is the level 2. And he calls it the Akshara Brahman. Then there is a Purushottama. The Akshara Purusha. Then finally you have the Uttama Purusha, which is the highest level, which is categorized as the supermind. Okay. Now, below the supermind is the overmind. And the overmind is the region of all the gods. So normally, when man thinks of the divine, he can't picture him as the divine because it's impossible for us to, with the mind, to understand the divine. He is infinite, he is finite, he is formless, he is form. He can be Saguna, he can be Nirguna. So when all these opposites are there, how will man understand? So normally when man thinks of God, he thinks of the gods, which are personifications of all the impersonal forces in the physical world. If there is wind which is impersonal, there is a God representing wind. If there is a vastness, okay, which is an impersonal thing, vastness, it is represented by a God. If there is water, which can be vast and infinite, there is a God for water. Everything that is there impersonal, there is a God. All these gods are there in the overmind consciousness. So when man wants to sacrifice, he is normally sacrificing to the gods. And so there are these 3 levels of sacrifice also the Gita describes. When we are in the physical world and we have desires, we are not doing any sacrifice at all. Okay? We are just trying to satisfy our desire. But there are others who believe in the gods and they appeal to the gods with the Vedism. Now we come to the Vedism. So those who are appealing to the gods to give them what they want, they are the ones in the middle. They are sacrificing. The others at level 1 are not sacrificing at all. Okay? They are just pursuing their own pleasures, but they are not sacrificing. But
Rangada,
yeah, tell me.
Rangada, one question. These gods are not the mental images of human beings. They are really there, or it is the human creation of the gods?
No. They are really there. But the forms are given by the human beings. So, since you have raised an interesting question, let me tell you. See, formlessness begins even at level 2. Okay? Formlessness. Even your vital, the forms are very plastic. They go on changing. Okay? Colors are there. In the mind, they are even more flexible and plastic. As you keep going higher and higher, they become more and more flexible and more subtle and more formless. So the gods can take any form they want. Even the asuras can take any form they want. Even the vital beings, they can take any form they want because they are not subject to matter. Matter has got fixed forms. But all the other worlds above matter, life worlds and mental worlds, they can change their form. And I'll tell you something interesting since you raised the question. Mother was once wondering that Ganesh is worshipped as the Vigneshwara and also he's supposed to be in charge of money and all that. So mother was wondering about him one day and she was wondering why they put an elephant trunk, okay? Why elephant head with a trunk on his head, okay? Of course, there's a explanation for that. There's a story, a legend, and that they explain. But mother was wondering about it, and suddenly she says, in the agenda, she says that the Ganesh appeared to me, and he had exactly this form of what is normally imagined by the human beings. He had a trunk, and he came, and he said, "You called me. What do you want?" The mother told him that you are supposed to be in charge of wealth. Okay, nature is giving me everything I want. Nature is giving me everything I want. But can you give me money? I want a lot of money. So there is so much organization to be done in the ashram and elsewhere. I need lots of money. It's not out of desire that I'm asking, it's for the work. So Ganesh says, yes, I can. Okay. And she says that money started pouring in like anything at one time. Okay. It must have been around the late 20s and early 30s. Okay. Then when the war started, okay, everything dried up. And she asked him that, why, what is it? You promised me that you will give me the money as much as I want and now you are not giving. He said, now the demand has become too much. It's outside my capacity. So in other words, even the gods have got powers, but their powers are limited. They are at the overmind level. Okay. The absolute power is only there at the supramental level. There are beings in the supramental world, but they are not called gods. The word God is very confusing because when you say God, do you mean the supreme God, absolute God, or do you mean the lesser ones? That's the whole question. So when we speak of gods, especially in those contexts, and even in our the devas, right? You use the word devas. We'll read that when we come to that. So these are all lesser gods, and as you keep coming down the scale, devas are there everywhere. Okay, even in the vegetable kingdom, there are devas. You'll be surprised to know that each species of animals also is represented by deva. Even the vegetables are, there is a deva for cauliflower, there is a deva for brinjals. You may find it very funny, but it's true. Okay, they are all representations. Okay, and mother had many interesting experiences with that. And if you are interested, I refer you to the Findhorn Garden. Okay, and in the Findhorn Garden, there was a lady called Dorothy, and she could speak to the devas. You know, she used to say the devas have a particular vegetable, and they used to get very good vegetables there. Then one day, what happened? Her vegetable garden got attacked by rats. Okay, and the rats came and ate up all the vegetables. Then this Dorothy, who was capable of going inwards and contacting these devas, she said, I want to talk to the rat deva. Okay. I'll tell you something about mother also, so you will not think that this is all nonsense. Okay. So, and she told that rat deva that, look, you are taking away my vegetables, and what will they do? My disciples will do. Those who are here with me in the Vrindavan garden, they'll put traps and kill all your rats. So please don't do this. You go elsewhere, otherwise we'll have to kill you. And surprisingly, next day, all the rats went to the next garden, not her garden. So you see, this is it. Now, since you may think that this is nonsense, okay, I'll tell you about mother's experience. Mother had once an experience with the serpent deva. And the serpent deva came to mother and said, let's have a pact. Okay? I promise not to hurt any of your disciples, and you must promise not to kill any of my subjects. That means you must never allow your subjects to kill any snake. Okay? Then mother told him, I'm sorry, but I will not be able to guarantee that because there are so many sadhaks and they are coming and going. I don't have all control over them, so I cannot guarantee that. So that treaty did not take place. Okay, so this is there in the agenda. Okay, so obviously these are truths, these devas. Okay, and they are there in the lower levels also. They start even from the vital world, the mental world. They are all devas. You call them whatever you want. Yes. You can, in English, you can call them sometimes at the life level, you can call them elemental beings. Okay? And at the mental level, they are called the Gandharvas, the Kinnaras, and in the West, they call them angels. Sometimes they're pictured with wings. Okay? Then you go to the overmind level, all the gods have also got their attendants, just like here. Okay? Kubera has got his attendants, Yama, the king of death, okay, the kingdom of death. He has got attendants. Very often, when a person is about to die, Yama himself does not come, but he sends his messengers. They come and take the soul. Okay, it's very interesting because this is also described in the Katha Upanishad. Okay, when that young boy Nachiketas is almost dying, first of all Yama does not come. First of all, the messengers come. Okay. But he says, no, I want to speak to Yama. Then when Yama comes, he starts arguing with him. He says, I want to know all about that. And then Yama says, you know that. The Katha Upanishad, if you read, you will come across it. Wonderful, very interesting Upanishad. Yama says, don't ask me. It is a very difficult question. You ask me for anything, I will give you. I'll give you elephants, I'll give you chariots, I'll give you horses, I'll give you whatever you want, I'll give you dancing girls. Have whatever you want, I'll give you. But don't ask about that. And he says, I'm sorry, but all these things don't interest me at all. He's a 16-year-old boy, Nachiketas. And then Yama explains to him, and that's the Upanishad. What is death? What happens after death? All that. It's a beautiful Upanishad in the form of the story, Nachiketas. So, this is so remember the three levels, okay, and the devas. So, and we got off because of Pallavi's question of the forms. All worlds above matter, they have forms, but they can change their forms. Okay? In fact, Sanskrit, the word is Kama Rupa. According to your own desire, you can change your form. That capacity is there for all beings in the worlds above matter. Life worlds, mental worlds, they can change they can appear to you as you picture them. That's what normally happens. Okay, so now I start reading what we read today, the paragraph. Oh my, I'm sorry, 8:36. Okay, so we have to. He explains here in this Kiran, in this paragraph, he is explaining again the difference between the three levels of this yajna. The man in the physical world who is only satisfying his desires is not doing any yajna at all. Okay, he is just satisfying his desires, and the Gita calls him a thief, and he says he lives in vain. Okay, his life is useless spiritually, absolutely of no value. So those who are doing the second level, those who are appealing to the gods, but appealing only for limited physical ends. Okay, I want success, I want money, I want this, I want that. Okay, these are all, they are using the mantras in the Vedas and they believe and they sacrifice to the gods. There is a bit of sacrifice, but it is for selfish ends. That's the second level. The Vedism, so the word used is Vedism for them. But there are those who sacrifice fully, and that is it goes to the third level. You sacrifice fully all your life, whatever you are doing, karma. Okay, it is only for the divine, and you have no desire, no aim for your sacrifice. You ask the divine to do what you want, full surrender. They are the ones who get the benefits, spiritual benefits. That is what the paragraph is all about. Next time we'll read the paragraph. But I have told you in brief what he is saying. And I will refer also to in chapter 3, all the shlokas which are the Gita is discussing. Okay? So we'll have to stop here now because it's already 8:38. So I wonder what happened to Yasmin. She didn't come today. I hope she's okay. So, au revoir, everybody.
No, she. Au revoir. Au revoir, Rangada. Bonjour.
Au revoir, Rangada.
Thank you, Rangada.